No haircut. Barber's being closed is really killing me. I need to get there as soon as I can. All right, on Monday, today, we're going to review 9.8 and 9.9. You will have a kind of a practice quiz review assignment. That'll be due Tuesday at 11:59. Tuesday, and then we'll have Canvas conferences from 12 to 12:30. And then we'll have same thing on Tuesday. We'll have Canvas conferences from 8:30 to 9 for those. Get on there and we'll go over some additional problems if you're missing any. Let me move my picture down. Wednesday. Okay, I'm basically going over the homework will be what the video is. We're not going to do any new material. There will be no assignment other than to study. Okay, study means to redo the problems from the practice quiz. So redo, okay, the 9.8, 9.9 review, which will be assigned today. Make sure you're good because and we'll have a Canvas conference on noon to 12:30, just reviewing problems for Thursday's quiz. And then Thursday, we will have a quiz over 9.8 and 9.9. It'll be due by 11:59. Very similar process. It will be uploaded about 8 o'clock. You'll have all day. Make sure you get it in as soon as possible, though. Friday, there will be no assignment, no video, nothing. You'll have that off, okay, because of the quiz on Thursday. Then we'll pick it up back up the following week. Okay. From the homework, page 657, I'm going to have this up here. You can, go through this, pause it, and kind of review your homework. Number 8 was the one that caused a lot of people problems. Very, very few people got it right. I am going to go over it here in a second. And it's also attached to your modules. Let me see if I can go to those. And if you go to modules, let's see. And under 9.6, and this was the last assignment, which was due last Thursday. But once it's due, what I do after it's due, I'll post the answer sheet. So you got the notes, the guided notes, you got the video, and you got the homework answer key. So you can load that, and then you also have it on the video here. And also for today, there are some guided notes. Typically, they're always going to be guided notes. I'll probably announce it if there's not, but if you go to today's, okay, this is a 9.8, 9.9 review. It hasn't been officially published yet. You gotta wait till we do the video. But there's guided notes, and then there's a homework worksheet on that, and you'll see that in the video here shortly. Okay, so number 8, I'm going to do in a minute. If it does not come out to a whole number for this, like square root of 100 is 10, it does not come out to nice fractions or whole numbers, and you get like the square root of 48, you're going to have to give me 2 answers. Okay, 2 sets, and we'll go over that as well as we start reviewing. And same thing for 10 and 12. This should be 1 answer. This is your radical answer. And then you do figure out what the square root of 41 is. This should be your decimal answer. Okay, over here, this is your radical answer. And then this down here will be your decimal answer. So on the quiz, you're going to have to list both if it doesn't come out to be a nice number. All right, so for number 8, solve 2x squared minus 6 equals 0. Well, this quadratic formula works for anything in the form ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. A is whatever in front of the x squared. A is going to be 2. B is whatever in front of the x. Well, there is no term with an x. It's not just the second term, it's whatever there is with the x. Since there is no second term, we let b equals 0. And then c is the constant, which would be right here. And that's going to be negative 6. We use a quadratic formula. Okay, and in this case here, we will let b equal 0. So when you're solving it, it says opposite of b. Well, opposite of 0 is still 0. Plus or minus, okay, 0 squared minus 4 times a, well, a is 2, times c, which is negative 6, over 2 times 2. All right, so now I got 0 plus or minus square root. Well, what is 0 squared minus 4 times 2 times negative 6? Well, 0 squared is 0. So really we got negative 4 times 2 times negative 6, which is 48. And then 2 times 2 is 4. All right, we can drop this 0 at this point. It's really not helping us. This right here is going to be plus or minus the square root of 48 divided by 4. That is your radical answer. Now what you need to do is figure out what the square root of 48 is, because when we take that, I kind of probably should have done this step first. You take the square root of 48. It's not a whole number. So that lets me know, and I'm going to round it to the nearest hundredth. Let me pull that over here so I don't lose it. And so it's going to be plus or minus the square root of, since it's 6.928, we go to the 8, and if it's bigger than 5, we round up. So it's 6.93 divided by 4. So now we take 6.93, divided by 4, and I get 1.73 as one answer, and then you do negative 6.93 divided by 4. That's going to give you negative 1.73 as your second answer. Yes, you can list that as plus or minus 1.73. That would be fine. But here's your radical answer. Here's your decimal answer. Like I said, most of you missed number 8 because of that B part. And we didn't do one exactly like that in the notes, I understand. But let me just want to make sure I went through that. Okay, so there's your quadratic formula. Here's your answer key again. Go back through here. A lot of you did really well. Okay, and then if it comes out to a nice number, square root of 9 is 3, then you're going to get whole number answers or fraction answers. Okay, if it doesn't come out, if it's not a perfect square, then we'll get decimals. All right, key thing for this section and for this quiz is you have to follow directions, because any equation you can solve using completing a square or quadratic formula. You really could use either one, but you have to follow the directions given in the problem. All right, so solving quadratic equations by completing the square. If you look at your guided notes, it goes through the routine here. I'm not going to go through that except as we go work through the problems. Solve the equation by completing the square. That is where we want to create something that is like x plus 2 quantity squared equals, I'm just making up numbers, 25, because when I take the square root, it works out to nice numbers. I can do this. All right, so for this first one, here's your procedure. So x squared, and this is the one case where we don't want it to equal 0. Whatever the constant is, we want it to be by itself. So I got x squared plus 16x. Now we add in the 2 blanks, one on each side. And whatever I put in the first blank, I have to put in the second blank. Well, to get that number, you take your 16, whatever's in front of the x, you cut it in half, and you square it. Well, 16 divided by 2 is 8. 8 squared is 64. That number goes into both spots there. Okay. This will factor. What are 2 numbers that multiply to equal 64, add to equal 16? Well, it is 8 and 8. Now, a lot of you will do this, which is fine. X squared plus 8x plus 8x plus 64. Okay, you're kind of taking this piece right here. And now I'm just going to factor it over here. And now we would do this GCF of 8, or excuse me, x. 8x plus 64 is a GCF of 8. And now they both have the same x plus 8 times x plus 8. Well, over here, and I said if there's no number in front of the x squared, you should be able just to jump to that step. X plus 8 times x plus 8 equals 17 plus 64. Well, what does that equal? Gives us 81. Now I want to make sure I do write this as x plus 8 quantity squared equals 81. Once you have it in this form, you have a quantity squared equals 81. We take the square root. Okay, the completing the square part comes in picking out this number right here, coming up with that 64. That allows us to get at the x plus 8 squared. When I take the square root, make sure you do plus or minus square root of 81. I'm going to get rid of that because I got it on the next page. And that's going to give me x plus 8, oh, that was squared, equals plus or minus 9. Now at this point here, when you take the square root of 81, it equals 9. You no longer have the square root. Subtract 8. Now this is a case where I like to write the bottom, and I do like to do negative 8 plus or minus 9. So I'm going to get two answers. Negative 8 plus 9, which is 1, and negative 8 minus 9, which is negative 17. So I got two answers, negative 17, positive 1. And that's going to be your final answer for this one here, negative 17 and 1. All right, this is completing the square. I want to do one more on your notes with completing the square. All right, the second one here, x squared minus 8x equals negative 7. This minus threw a few of you off on the first time we did homework last Monday on this. All right, procedure is exactly the same. X squared minus 8x. We're going to add a blank on both sides. Now we take negative 8 squared, negative 8 divided by 2 squared, which is negative 4 squared, which is positive 16. Make sure you put parentheses around the negative 4. This will always be a positive number. So right there, this should be a plus. Some of you made that a minus. Okay, that should be, it has to be a plus because we're taking negative 4 and we're squaring it. All right, now what are two numbers that multiply to equal 16 and add to equal negative 8? Two numbers are negative 4 and negative 4. So now that factors into x minus 4 times x minus 4. Negative 7 plus 16 is positive 9. So now I get x minus 4 squared equals 9. I can take the square root now. I get x minus 4 squared equals plus or minus square root of 9. That gives me plus or minus 3. I add 4 to both sides. And I get x equals 4 plus or minus 3. And 4 plus 3 will give me the one answer, 7. And 4 minus 3 will give me the second answer of 1. So my final answer is 1, 7. Okay. For completing the square, all of your problems should work out to be nice whole numbers. Okay, Mrs. Napholtz and Mr. Laverick and I have all kind of gone through and agreed that this should, like this should always be a perfect square so it comes out to a whole number. If you get a negative there, like if you would have made this a negative 16 and you got negative 23, that means you made a mistake somewhere. You had to go back and fix it. If you get something that doesn't come out to a whole number when you take the square root, it means you probably made a mistake. Unless we made one, which hopefully we didn't. But this should always come out to a nice whole number right here. And then when you add your number, you're going to get two nice whole numbers for completing the square. Not the same for quadratic formula. All right, so that's completing the square. The second method we've done is using a quadratic formula. That was section 9.9. Okay, we'll probably let you use the quadratic formula on the test. Okay, again, here's the quadratic formula. It's what you did last Wednesday. X equals the opposite of b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Okay, now a is whatever's in front of x squared. B is whatever in front of x, and c is what's the constant, and it has to equal 0. All right, it says solve using the quadratic formula. So on your quiz, on your homework, you have to follow directions. You have to use the quadratic formula. Okay, completing the square could work, but that too would make things difficult. We haven't gone over how to do that. All right, it does equal 0. Since it does equal 0, go ahead and list what the a value is. A is 2. B is the value in front of the x, which is 5, and c is the constant. Don't forget the sign. Make sure you make c negative 12. Okay, so the quadratic formula. I would write this down for every problem because it just helps you to learn it. And a few of you had it written down incorrectly on your homework, which ended up costing you. All right, substitute in opposite of b, negative 5, plus or minus b squared, which would be 5 squared. Since it's positive, you don't have to have parentheses, but they never hurt. Minus 4, a is 2, c is negative 12 over 2a, which is 2 times 2. So you got negative 5 plus or minus square root 25. What you get under the parentheses is going to be very important here. Now you can, and actually what we can do is we can type that in all at once. I'm going to take my calculator and I'm going to put 5 squared. It's positive, so I don't need parentheses. Minus 4 times 2 times negative 12. Now you get 121 over 4. All right, now we got to see what the square root of 120 was. That'll tell us whether we'll have a radical and a decimal answer or just a whole number or a fraction. All right, so you may know the square root of 21 off the top of your head. You may not. But if I take it right here, square root of 121, it's a whole number. It's 11. There's no decimal. So that makes this a little bit easier. So now I make this negative 5 plus or minus 11 over 4. Okay. Once you take the square root of 121, then there's no more square root. All right, so you got two cases. Negative 5 plus 11 divided by 4. And the second case is negative 5 minus 11 divided by 4. Well, what's negative 5 plus 11? That's 6. 6 over 4, if it doesn't come out to a whole number, like 6 divided by 4. Doesn't give us a whole number. It's 1.5. Just leave it as a fraction. And in this case, reduce it though. 6 over 4 becomes 3/2. This one here, negative 5 minus 11 is negative 16 over 4. Now don't leave that because negative 16 divided by 4 is going to give us negative 4. And that's going to be a nice whole number. So we always want to write it as a reduced fraction or a whole number when we can. My two answers, negative 4 3/2. All right, so that's using the quadratic formula. Let's look at one more using the quadratic formula. All right, on your guided notes, you got x squared minus 4x plus 9 equals 0. Quadratic formula needs to equal 0. It does. That means a is whatever's in front of x squared. Well, if there's no, remember, if you have the x squared there, it's not written, there's a 1. B is negative 4. C is positive 9. We're going to write down the quadratic formula. Negative b plus or minus b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. All right, opposite of b. B is negative 4, just make it positive 4. All right, here's where you really got to watch. B squared, since b is negative, make sure you put negative 4 in parentheses. Minus 4, a is 1, c is 9. No, I don't like what's going to happen here. I think C might need to be negative. Hold on one second here. Over, hold on, 2 times 1. All right. Yeah, this isn't going to give me what I wanted. Because it's going to give us a negative under the radical. We don't ever want that yet. That'll eventually come up. So let's take a look here, and I'm going to make C negative 9. Okay, which means I'm just going to make this x squared minus 4x minus 9 equals 0. So that's going to be a negative. And then that means this right here will be a negative as well. All right, that's just going to make things work out a little bit better. All right, so forget that original formula on your paper. Go back, make that plus a minus 9. Because now when we put the what's underneath the square root in your calculator and figure out what it is, negative 4 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 9, give me positive 52. So 4 plus or minus square root of 52 over 2. Okay, what we want to do is take the square root of 52 and see what type of number it is. It is not a whole number. It is a decimal. So that means I'm going to have 2 forms of my answer. One is the radical form, which is what I have right here. I'm going to write down x equals 4 plus or minus square root of 52 over 2. That is the radical form. And then I'm going to come up with the 2 decimal answers, which is the decimal form, which means I'm going to take what was the square root of 52? I'm going to round to the nearest hundredth, 7.21. So what I got now is x equals 4 plus or minus 7.21 divided by 2. And now I do my 2 cases. Case number 1 is 4 plus 7.21 divided by 2. And so I go here and I do 4 plus 7.21. Now you got to take that answer. You got to hit equals and then divide it by 2. And then I'm going to round that off to 5.61. And then the second answer is 4 minus 7.21 over 2. 4 minus 7.21. Hit equals divided by 2. And that's negative 1.61. All right, so there's my decimal answers. Negative 1.61, 5.61. All right, so we did 2 by completing a square. We did 2 by quadratic formula. Those are the only 2 things that are going to be on our quiz. All right, this is a review assignment. You must show all supporting work and the correct work. So for 1, 2, 3, 4, you cannot just pick your method. You have to use completing a square. And then 5, 6, 7, and 8 are all quadratic formula. 7 and 8 will be like the ones we just did. There will be a radical answer and a decimal answer. For 5 and 6, it should work out to be fractions or whole numbers. Okay, do this. Do on your own paper. Okay, just don't try to print this off because there's not enough room to write things down. Okay, do it on a separate sheet of paper. Got it? And then upload it by tomorrow. All right, hope everybody's doing good. We will take care, and we will. I will talk to you on hopefully. I'll come back with the next video Wednesday, but maybe I'll see you in the conferences today or tomorrow. All right, have a great day.